not like sit down, meditate, and things are going to appear in your lap, right? There is science, and there is 20 years of data that he has with the University of San Diego on how does your body work when you do the meditations and when you do all this stuff. You know, everything changes from inside.
Santiago Arana.
Humberto.
You're on Checkitow. Dude, you know, I'm glad that I have you here because I'm watching a lot of real estate shows. First of all, we should tell people that you appear on Buying Beverly Hills, which is on Netflix, which centers around the agency. I love the name, which you're a partner in. And first of all, explain why the agency is the perfect place to have a reality show. Like, why do you guys warrant that kind of attention?
Well, look, I mean, well, thanks for having me here, first of all. And to answer your questions, I think that the main reason is real estate, right? Mm-hmm. So when we talk about real estate, people are wanting to watch what the best house is, what the best product is out there, right? And through our success and through the agents that we have at the agency, we have probably the best listings there out there. So I think that itself is what draws people to come to want to see those houses, right? So we have a lot of very, very successful agents. We are known for not having thousands of agents, but having the best quality, the best agents in any market share that we're now, more than 90 offices now. Right. So I think that a combination of having really good real estate, having very good successful agents, makes that very interesting to see how those transactions take place and how that happens.
But there's also a culture. There's also a lot of people always joke about how attractive the agents at the agency are. I got to have brunch with you yesterday. I asked you, okay, were you an actor or a model, previously? And you were like, oh, well, okay, I modeled a couple of years here and there. So there's like kind of like a Hollywood feel to the agency, right? That happened organically, or is that part of the plan?
I think that's not intentional. I think that's certainly not, and I don't think that that's something that you are allowed to do, or you should be like only good-looking people, right? But yes, there are a lot of good-looking people at the agency, and I think that just organically.
Do you enjoy having cameras around? I saw a clip of you on the show where you're bringing in some other real estate agents. I like the way you set the stage when you're dealing with other agents. There's a lot of, how should I say? We'll get to the Joe Dispenza stuff later, but there's a lot of power in the way that you communicate with other agents. But do you enjoy having the cameras around, or can you maintain being natural with cameras around? Because you're not an actor right now. You're being yourself, and you're actually bringing it into your business, which is a whole nother level.
Look, I'm very new, right? I just did one season last year, and we're in the middle of filming season 2 right now. Mm-hmm. So I'm new to it, and there is certainly some, awkwardness on when you have cameras around. I think that you get used to, though. I'm getting used to it. I can see the difference between last year and this year. I'm a lot more comfortable, and one of the important things for me was just to represent who I am, right? Like these TV shows, they are scripted to some degree, right? Mm. But the beauty with this show is that it allows me to be who I am and deliver that message that I need to deliver and act just like if I'm doing a transaction or anything is happening in the real life. And that's really what we wanted for people to see, is because a lot of these reality TV shows are very drama oriented, right? And we wanted for the people that are watching these TV shows to kind of see what really happens when you do actually a transaction for real, right? When you
and for a lot of money.
Exactly. So this is just give a little bit of that insight to the public.
And like I said, I've been watching a lot of real estate shows. I've also seen you appear, and I don't want to sidewind because I want to come back to the agency for a second, but I've seen you on, I've been watching that guy, Enos Hill-Mausers.
Oh, yeah.
And you've been on a couple of his episodes. Yeah. I tell our mutual friend Stefan Pompuy, who's an agent at the agency, that like real estate videos are my new porn, because I'm hopefully getting to a place in my life where someone.
You're not alone on that one, by the way.
And it's like, okay, enough. This is like what I sit with a glass of wine, and there's a little bit of a fantasy aspect going on, but aspirational. But going back to the agency, there's a Latin angle. You not just yourself, who's a partner, and we can talk about you were born in Bolivia and you came here. I want to hear that story. But one of the main guys, I think it's you, Billy Rose, and Mauricio Umansky, who is Mauricio. Where's he from?
So Mauricio is from Mexico City, right?
So we have two Latinos
Right.
heading the hottest real estate agency in the country. I think that's something something of importance and something that should be noted.
Yeah, as a Latino, that obviously makes you proud, and also happened organically. I knew Mauricio through the business while we were both working in different companies, and it was just nice to get to know him more and now become very close friends and do the business together and being Latinos, and that's a lot of you're gonna see in the show is. A lot of that interaction because we speak Spanish, we speak English, and sometimes we don't even know what we're speaking, right? So you'll see some of that now on this season.
I've been telling people that speak perfect English but with an accent that they actually come across more elegant and educated. Do you feel that because you have a very elegant accent, you speak perfect English? But
I do?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Do you listen? I mean, compared to Americans, they don't speak English perfectly.
Two news for me. I didn't know I speak perfect English, and I didn't know I had
You
an
didn't know I
accent.
had an accent. It's like you're at the doctor's office and the doctor comes on and goes, Santiago, I hate to break this to you, but you have an accent. You're like, what?
You don't hear it. Do you hear that? Like, I don't, like, honestly, like, I don't hear.
I have an accent too. I was born in Miami, but it's because I was raised bilingually. That was enough for me to. Some people if from North Carolina,
Pick it up.
they'll be like, oh, you have a Spanish accent. When I was growing up, I'm like, it was a shock to me. No, your accent is subtle, and it's elegant. Do you feel that these days having a kind of like an international vibe actually kind of sets you apart?
I think it sets you apart just for the fact that it's different, right?
Right.
So I think that's what it is, and I don't know. A lot of people say, the accent helps you with business, and
Ladies.
a lot of people say that the British accent, is like the
That's
one
another
that people
one.
like here really get attracted to it, right? And I think it's just because it's different, right? I think that that little different accent creates something new for people to be attracted to and wanted to hear it, So that's my take on that. I don't know how else.
Listen, it's an asset and you're using it. Okay?
Great.
And it's helping. Tell me your story, man. So you are born and raised in Bolivia. Tell me how you got here and how you got into real estate, because I have seen some of your other interviews. There was a turning point in your life. I want to know about the coming back from the lowest point in your life to become what you are now, one of the top real estate agents in the country.
Okay, sure. So, I was born in Bolivia in 1980, and I lived the first 23 years of my life in Bolivia. I was raised by my mother, and I have a sister, and I basically went to college in Bolivia. I finished college in Bolivia, and when I finished studying business administration and marketing, at the age of 22, I got a job in the capital. Well, what's known to be the capital in Bolivia is really Sucre, but everybody knows La Paz being the capital. So I went to La Paz, and I was working there for the National Institute of Statistics, and it's amazing, when you finish college and you get out and you really don't know what you're doing. I didn't know, I had a job, I had a desk, but I'm sitting there and I don't know what I'm doing. Nobody's training me, and I'm very frustrated. I'm scared, but I'm making money. And then the situation in Bolivia, if you recall or you watch the news or you Google, in 2002, it was very unstable, right? They tried to kill the president. The army went to defend the president. The cops were like, trying to get in there, and they were fighting, and they killed about, I don't know how many people, 100 people that day, like 2 blocks from my office, right? So I was like, whoa, this is not a pleasant place to be at the moment. So I called my dad and I said, I think probably maybe a good idea until things settle in the country to go and do a master's degree and come back and have a better resume, with more experience and probably get a better job. He's like, I think that's a good idea. So I applied for a scholarship to do a master's degree in finances, and I got it. But it was only taught in English, so I was like, I need to now learn English, right? So they told me, we'll wait until next year, but you have 1 year to learn, so you can take this. So I ended up talking to my mom, and I said, if I go to classes and I come out and I speak in Spanish with my friends, with you, and I don't feel like I'm gonna learn it, so like Tony Robbins says, the best way to learn something is by immersion. So I wanted to be immersed on the language of English. And what better way to do it, to be in a place where they speak English only, right? So my mom said, I have a cousin that lives in the US. Let me call her and see maybe she can help us. I had an aunt. She said that he can come and crash in my couch for 8 months. So, which I did. So I flew, actually 2 weeks ago was my anniversary of 20 years being in America.
Wow.
On May 7th, 2023, I flew into LAX. She picked me up in the middle of the night. We drove up to Santa Barbara, which I had no clue what it was, what it looked like. I mean, coming from Bolivia, you could have told me you're going to Kansas City or Santa Barbara, and I didn't know. Till the point, actually, when I got to the airport and immigration took a letter that my aunt sent me to show them because I didn't speak English. And she said, just show them the letter when they're interviewing you, and that's going to help you. So they read a letter my aunt said, he's coming to stay with me, I'm responsible for him, blah, 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 everything the immigration wants to hear. And they read Santa Barbara, and the guy was like, oh, Santa Barbara. I made like a funny face, and I was like, what does that mean, right? Not until I woke up that day that she picked me up from the airport at 8 in the morning, I think, and I lifted my head up, and I looked outside the window, and there was the ocean right there, right? And Bolivia's landlocked, right? So for me, that was a big deal. And I just put my shoes, and I ran to the ocean to take a look and walk, and I was like just overwhelmed with happiness. So that was the day I arrived, you know, with a suitcase, $120, and zero English. So I went to a school, what's it called, ESL, English as a Second Language. There was a school up in Santa Barbara for free, adult school at night. And I was doing that, and I very quickly also ran out of the $120, and I went to my aunt, who I was sleeping on her couch, basically, and she was providing with breakfast, lunch, and dinner, which is a big deal, right? And I said, I want to go out and walk around. Do you have, you know, some money so I can buy a beer and lunch? And she was like, go get a job. And I was like, that was a shock for me, right? Like, I was like, because in Latin, you know, countries, you know, if you're staying at someone, that person's taking care of you, right, with everything. So for me, it was a big shocker. And I'm grateful to that now because she really taught me with a tough way, you know, to learn how to survive in America, to learn how to do things on my own, how to, you know, just go get a job. Okay, it's okay, you know, to go and get a job or whatever. I remember driving on her car, and she took me to Home Depot where a bunch of, you know, people waiting for a job out there, and she's like, you have this option, or we can go and throw applications at a restaurant. But you most likely work as a busboy because you don't speak English yet, but let's try. So we went to drop applications at a few restaurants, and I remember in Montecito there was this restaurant called Cava. I walked in, and the manager was there, and he's like, how can I help you? And I was like, I want to take an application. So he gives me the application, and he's like, but do you speak English? And I was like, no. And he's speaking Spanish with me, although he was Brazilian. And he was the manager there for 20 years. His name is Andre. And but he liked me. I can see that he liked me, and he was a nice guy. And he said, but you can clean tables, right? And I'm like, yeah, of course. He's like, you have any experience cleaning tables? I'm like, yeah, of course. You know, which is not. And he kind of knew, and he smiled, and he's like, okay, go and get this color shirt, this color pants, and I'll see you tomorrow night. So that was my first job as a busboy in a restaurant in Montecito. And I was doing that in the daytime and going to school at night. And about 3.5 months, 4 months, I picked up the language where I could communicate. Mm-hmm. And I went to him and I said, is there any way you can make me a waiter? Because I want to make a little bit more money. And I like to interact with people. You know, I like people. And I think I can probably sell more food than clean
You've always
tables.
been a hustler. The hustle's there. You're like, all right, you understood waiters, you know, make tips.
And even through the restaurant, through the years, you know, like I was like, what's the next restaurant? Mm-hmm. You know, if I want to work at lunchtime or dinner shift, and I'm making $80 at lunch and $120, $150 at night, it's got to be another restaurant where I can be making $180 for lunch and $250 or $300 per dinner. Mm-hmm. So I was always looking like, what is the next restaurant that you can make more tips that is better? And I escalated from restaurant to restaurant to restaurant. I ended up in the highest restaurant in LA at the time, which was called L'Orangerie, where I remember walking some nights with $3,000-$4,000 in cash, you know. I served on a table of a family of 12 that they spent $100,000 for dinner. And all this experience that I had in the restaurant business, you know, it really opened up my eyes because I came from a world where, yeah, if you are middle class, you have a good life and everything's okay, but it never crossed your mind that someone can go and drop $100,000 for a dinner, right? And more than that, they were like the regular customers that were coming every Thursday, you know, young couple, and dropping $3,000-$4,000 for dinner. That was the most impressive. Like, if you can do that every week, what do you do, right? This is like, what do you do or how you do it? Because I love to be able to do that. So that kind of like awakened that, you know, curiosity and also that ambition.
Right.
So going back, so I started working in that restaurant, and the interesting thing, going full circle now, after I left Santa Barbara, I moved to LA, a few years later, Andre, the general manager, reached out to me that he got a license, and now he works at the agency for me.
Wow.
So he's there with us. He's a super cool guy. But that was it. That's how I got into the restaurant business, and I did that for a while. When I moved down to LA and I met my wife, and I decided, I'm not going to take any scholarship. I like it here. Now I was exposed to this world, right, that I was just excited about it, right? All these opportunities, and I could just see opportunities out there, and I need to figure out what is next for me. And talking to people and doing this, I translated my degree into the equivalent of what the classes would be here in America, and it was basically business administration and marketing. So I had the company do my resume, and I was just now dropping resumes. Now I speak English, now I have my classes. And I was going to sales companies, insurance companies, all kinds of companies, and they were offering me, starting jobs with insurance, health, and medical, which all that's helpful. And nothing really seemed very exciting to me, and I was actually making more money in cash, waiting tables. But I knew that that's not something I'm going to be doing for the long term. So working for a company is like, okay, if I work for this company, and if I work for 10 years, where would I be in 10 years? Like how an executive that performs, where does he land in 10 years, and what kind of money are they making? So I started investigating all that, right? And at the same time, my cousin at the time, who lived in Santa Barbara, was doing loans when I was living there. And it was 2003, 2004.
Loans or lawns?
Loans.
Loans.
Yeah,
okay.
Mortgages. There you go. That's an accent moment. So I was watching him, and he will sit in the computer for 2-3 hours, make $10,000, $15,000, and go surfing all day. I'm like, what do you do, right? And he explained to me, right, this is what I do. And I'm like, can I do the same? What do I need to do? He's like, you get a license, but it's a real estate license, right? So, and I think you'd be better in real estate. And I was like, what's real estate? And he's like, you don't know what real estate is? Like, well, not really. So he explains to me, and I'm like, so that bag stayed with me. And then when I moved to LA, I started like, okay, how much a real estate agent in LA can make? Like, what are the top agents at the moment, right? So I started looking, and I started seeing. I was like, whoa, that, really the sky is the limit, and you can make that much money in real estate. That seems very interesting to me.
How did you? Okay, so that's an amazing pathway, because you're literally coming up from the bottom. There's something about people that have a hustle that it doesn't matter how much they know. They'll educate themselves along the way, but the hustle's inherent, and that's not something they teach in school. Like, hey, this is what you need, to get ahead in life. This is the kind of attitude. And kind of segueing into we've spoken about Joe Dispenza, who's, a big influence on a lot of myself and my friends' lives, and that him and you've had him speak at the agency. And, how did you start? I would imagine that when you start reading some of the things that he writes and hearing some of the things that he says, that a lot of it clicks because you feel that you already felt that or was already thinking that way to begin with. And that kind of validates and yes, lean into this. This is the way to go. Mm-hmm. Was that the kind of effect he had on you? And how did you seek him out?
Yeah, Joe and I are good friends now, but the introductory to that world of manifesting, the world of all that, was not him. It was back in 2007, 2006 when the movie The Secret came out, right? Right. Until that point, I really didn't have any exposure or knowledge of any of this stuff. And when my mother-in-law brought that DVD, The Secret, and she's a very spiritual person, gave it to me, I remember in between shifts in the restaurant, I went home and I watched this movie and I was crying. And as I'm watching this movie, I'm literally crying. And I'm like, why nobody taught me this before? Now I'm here 24 years old and I don't know about this. This is, I just felt inside that was right? It felt right. It felt like it made a lot of sense, that we have the ability to create our lives, that we have the ability to, control our minds and our feelings, and that will create eventually our new realities. So when I discovered that, I just developed this appetite for all that kind of information. So, I got into Tony Robbins, I did all seminars, I read all the books, I did all the audiobooks and the DVDs in my car, I was listening while I was driving. Then I got into the Abraham Hicks, Jerry and Esther Hicks with the teachings of Abraham. I did all of that. And one thing takes you to another one. I start devouring books. One of the books that I still read every year now, and I teach classes, and I have my YouTube channel, and I talked about it in there, is Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, And there's a lot of these books that is interesting, and there was a time of history between the late 1800s and early 1900s where a lot of these successful people developed this thinking, right? Nightingale, Thomas Edison, Ford. And so this guy, Napoleon Hill, went and studied all these people and why is it that they're so successful and put all this information in this one book. So, of course, you want to read that book, right? But yes, it's almost like it's like a familiar feeling that when you read all this stuff, that you're like almost like it's a reminder of something that we all have. Mm-hmm. We all know this, we just don't remember. And for me, that was a reminder of that I can have control of my life, and I cannot be a victim of the outside elements to control my life. So I could make a difference, and I want to start creating this new life. Mm-hmm. And that's how everything started for me.
Tell me you told me this when we had brunch the other day, but the story of how you got Joe Dispenza to speak, because, for people that don't know, he's one of the leading, speakers to this manifesting and optimizing self-realization and all this stuff. What I like is that he's very practical and business and success oriented, but there's, in a very delicate, subtle way, a lot of spiritual elements, in what he speaks without, going full throttle,
right.
with the new age stuff. But, the way he brings all that together with science, and he brings a science aspect to it. And I would say he's probably the leading person when it comes to that right now for a lot of us. And so here you went to one of his seminars, and he speaks to big groups. He doesn't come to small, and not that the agency is small, but he doesn't come to like individual companies as much anymore. It's not his thing.
Right.
So here you are, and you're trying to get his attention. Tell us a story of you're at that seminar. How did you get this guy to come speak at your company?
So, yes, I went to one of his retreats. And what the beauty about Joe is that he actually has the science and the data to back it up, right? It's not like sit down, meditate, and things are going to appear in your lap, right? There is science, and there is 20 years of data that he has with the University of San Diego on how does your body work when you do the meditations and when you do all this stuff. Everything changes from inside. But so I went to the first retreat in Colorado, and I read these books. I saw a lot of these videos and everything, but there's nothing until you're in the presence of someone like that, mm-hmm. Tony Robbins, Joe Dispenza. There is it's an energy that they exude that you're attracted to, and you're like just, it's like powerful. So I'm in this event, and I'm like sitting there, and I've always been the guy that wants to sit in the front or very close to the front, right? I mean, if I need to pay a little extra or I need to do something to be in the front, I always make an effort to be in the front. And I think that if you're going to go and be part of any of these things and you want to learn something, and you don't need to learn the whole content, if you can get one or two pieces of information from that specific seminar or event that you go or retreat, that's enough. But you need to go and apply it in your life, right? So I'm always sitting in the front because I want to get the message. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking at this guy and I'm like, this guy is so cool, right? In my mind, I'm like, I literally said, one day I'm going to be having tequila with him. Right, because he gave about examples that he goes back home sometimes and he relaxes, he has a glass of tequila, and I was like, I'm gonna be having tequila with this guy one day, and I just kind of said that in my mind, and then and I think where you're trying to go is what's the difference between when people talk about manifestation and going and visualizing and meditating, and if you sit down on your couch and you just imagining your perfect life is step one, right? You thinking about the things you want is a step one.
And that's most people in
right.
Especially Southern California, but in all this kind of, new age movements, you have a bunch of people that think that that's enough.
Right, which not. Right. Yeah, so you're sitting on your couch meditating, someone's going to come and take that couch from you. Mm-hmm. So step two is feeling what we do. Actually, that's more powerful because it's been proven now that it's your heart actually that sends the waves out there, right? It's not your brain. So if you're actually feeling the feelings of what's going to feel for you to be in that life or being with that relationship or whatever it is that you're going to be doing, that's when really starts getting important. But also you need to take action in this reality, right? We live in this world of material, three-dimensional things, right? So what the action for me was like, I said that when I had an eye connection with him, I wanted him to remember me. Mm-hmm. So he somehow made eye contact and I said, you and me, like something, like I want to talk to you. And he kind of ignored it, obviously. And I don't know how many people probably do that, And then for me, the action was like I left and I was walking to lunch and I said, I need to talk to someone. So I found someone that worked for him and I approached him and I basically said, listen, this is who I am. This is my card. I know probably a lot of people do this, but I truly would like to be involved and help. You know, there's a lot of things that I can help you know, bringing people awareness of this stuff, helping maybe with money for more research, and also I wanted to get involved with anything has to do with children. Because I believe that if you teach these concepts and this knowledge to children is when you're really going to see a big change in the world, right? Because for us adults, when you're learning this stuff, it takes a lot of time to unwind everything that you learn through school, through society, to the news, through everything, right, in your life. Now you need to like unwind all that. But if you learn that at an early age, you actually don't need to unlearn something to learn something. It's like, you know, golf, right? If you learn bad habits, it takes almost a lot more time to unlearn that to be good than be at zero, right? So I gave him my card and I said, I'd like to have the opportunity to also for him to come and talk to my company. I'm having a big event. And I just kind of did that, right? That was the action part on this world, right? You do something, right? You just don't like think about something and wait. You need to take action, right? And it can be different kinds of actions depending on what you do, right? A week later, I got an email from someone that works for him and said, you are interested in talking to him? He has an opening. Would you want to do a Zoom call with him on Thursday? I'm like, yes. So we get into the Zoom call, and now here he is in my computer, right? And I'm like overwhelmed of joy, right? Because it's like, I can't believe this actually, but it's this fast.
Well, what's amazing, and because you're one of these people that I want to learn from, you know, because just from where you come from to where you are now, I mean, that's the evidence, right? I think a lot of people, they speak to success, but they don't really have the experience or the accomplishments, you know, and that might seem sort of they'll try to make it out like to be superficial because the wisdom that they have should be enough, and we, you know, the words that they speak. But I want to see somebody who's actually experienced and do it. And when you take these actions, though, they're not clumsy or reckless. Because some of them are risks. You're taking a risk. You're doing something that otherwise is not allowed. You're not supposed to go up to Joe Dispenza in the middle of a seminar,
Right.
and we don't recommend other people try it, or maybe. But you gotta, or you know, but if you do it in a certain way, and there's an intention and there's a control to your actions, even when you kind of toe the line, that I think is what makes it so effective.
100%, and you say something key in there, right? It's intention.
Yeah.
You know, it all starts with an intention. What is the intention? What is the meaning? I mean, if you want to do something, what is that you wanted to do, and what is the reason, right? Because that really is what sets the energy on what's going to come or not, right? So you need to have a clear intention of what you want to accomplish with that action you're going to take, right?
All right, so now coming back to real estate, this is a very dicey moment right now for real estate because, like I said, now I'm interested in it, you know, and there's a lot of things happening. I know in LA County and stuff, new taxes, that kind of, you know, we have this lingering, looming recession that we seem to be in, but we still haven't hit the catastrophic moment that people keep saying. Maybe, hopefully, it doesn't happen. How is that going to affect, especially the agency, especially yourself? You basically deal with high-end clients. You're dealing with some of the most expensive properties in the country, if not the world. How does that affect your market?
Well, look, I mean, you know, everybody that has done real estate for a good amount of time understand that these are cycles, right? It happens that, you know, from last time in 2008, 2009, when we had a big crisis, I believe we skipped a cycle, right? We did not have that 6-7 year cycle that comes and goes, right? So I think that people got a little distracted and you know, we've been going in a very good market up and up and up and up since 2011, 12, right? So at some point it needs to be an adjustment, you know, at some point it needs to be this down cycle. And I think this just happens to be right now that we got hit with a bunch of different things, right? We have, yes, the ULA tax, you know, which influences a lot. And we have the interest rates, you know, going up. We have inflation. So there's a lot of uncertainty there, right? And I think that people, when there's uncertainty, they just prefer not to make any decisions, right? So that makes it slower. But, you know, it's again, it's gonna pass, right? I mean, and I always say there's things you can control and things you cannot control. What's gonna be the tax is gonna be the tax. What the economy is gonna do is the economy is gonna do. What the interest rates and the banking is gonna happen. Those are things that you really cannot control. but what can you control is what you do every day to overcome those things, right? So yeah, this is a little different right now. Things are not moving as much. There's a lot less transactions, but they're still transacting properties. I mean, like Beyonce and Jay-Z just bought a $200 million house, closed escrow on Friday.
Wow.
Right? So that's a big transaction. Yes, but they are part of that point whatever percentage of people and this and that. But it's still, even people like that, when there is uncertainty and they feel like there will be some sort of change or this or that, they wait also, right? So technology and the way how the world is now, it changes things a little bit. So the way how cycles went through history in the last 100 years, and speaking about Southern California specifically, was those 7 years ups and downs, maybe it won't be like that anymore, right? Maybe it's going to be a little bit different. So you just need to adjust to that, And I always tell, and on my experience of being part of the 08, 09 crisis is, by the time you actually know, or you say, oh, here's the bottom line of this crisis, it's already passed, right? It's in the rearview mirror, right? It's not something you're like, oh, in 5 days it's going to be the bottom of the market. That's when you need to buy properties and this. We're already in a crisis. You're already better off buying right now than waiting or buying before. Like, you are already in it, and it will be that day which is the bottom, but what difference it make to be at the bottom on Thursday or you bought on Wednesday or next Friday, right? So.
Well, I think one thing that helps the agency is that you guys have formed this culture. There's a brand beyond, just like the business aspect. There's this branding aspect, and there's these personalities that you guys have. So I don't know. Do you mind me bringing in the friend that introduced us, Stefan Pompuy, who works at the agency?
Not at all.
I think our sound guy went off. You're gonna have to grab his microphone from the floor right below you. Do you see it? And Stefan, come inside. Yeah, I'll edit this good. Is it in flow? Look at. Okay. Yeah, let's get him in. Let's get him in for the last 10 minutes here. Hold on.
Where's the? I don't know.
All right, so joining us is a very good friend of mine, Stefan Pompuy. Finally makes his appearance on an LATV show. He's put a lot of his friends on the various shows throughout the years, and you guys work together. And I think that I wanted him as part of the conversation because circling back to the agency's culture, it's very hip. It's very forward thinking. It's very, there's a burner aspect. You went to Burning Man, and I think Stefan brings a lot of that. Now, I would say that you guys have a motto, no assholes, is the motto of the agency, right? Or one of them?
Yeah, it's rule number one.
Okay, so this is like low-hanging fruit. Yeah, you guys are like, all right, which one of us should be like, well, how did this guy get it? That's a very provocative motto for a business that's dealing with a lot of, high-end clientele. Is that like a risk factor that's like, where some people might be put off that we have a curse word on our branding? Other people are going to be like, all right, these guys are like my kind of people. Was that the thinking, or?
I think that in the world we are like, it's known now that people that speak cursing are more honest.
Okay.
Right? Like when you're talking to someone that actually expresses themselves like that, you know that they're telling the truth, right? There's a more honest way to express. And I'm not saying that you should go cursing around, but when someone does eventually or sometimes throw a word of cursing in there, you know that they're being real, right? So we really meant that, right? I mean, if you're gonna wake up every day and work in a place where you're gonna spend a lot of your life or a lot of your days going, why would you want to be sitting or being in an environment where there's someone that is undesirable, or call it an asshole, right? So, which lead us to like less agents, right? Because a lot of these companies have so many agents that you don't even know who you're working with, right? And you're as weak as your weakest link, right? Or as strong as your weakest link. So the fact that we're less people and we're selective, like, we have Estefan here, it makes a difference, right? Because when you wear the t-shirt or you wear a hat or you're just going into an appointment after 3 or 4 other people went to the same appointment from different companies, and the client, the seller, that person that you're going to work with will know the difference, So we want people that understand the business, that understand the contracts, that they're very, into the real estate, not just half-time, part-time job. And you put a good group of people that take it seriously and they are knowledgeable and they're enjoyable people to be around, then you can are known for that, right? The agency agents are knowledgeable, they're professional, they're this, and they're fun to be around. I think that's what it is.
Yeah,
right?
and that's kind of what creates the culture that you speak of, right? I mean, I'm sure you've been hit up by other firms. I've been hit up by other firms offering us all these, incentives and great splits and all that stuff. And I always tell them, I said, you can give me $1 million bonus and I wouldn't change, because the whole point of success and making money is to enjoy life, right? And so if you're enjoying life along the way, even if I make a little less, which I don't think I would, staying at the agency, but let's just say I would, I'm still enjoying the process of the path to success, or my daily lifestyle, hanging out. We do our men's bike rides and cold plunges, with Billy, we're on Alinda or going to Burning Man or whatever. And that's kind of the whole point. When you get to work with, family, that's what makes it all the more fun. And so, work life and play life, or, fun times blend together, because half the time you don't know, which one we're with. Well, we're kind of working here, but we're having such a good time. Is this actually considered work? I don't know, maybe not, or whatever. And so, right, it's like it creates that culture. And I think especially like you were saying in this business, with real estate agents, where there's so many people that are, a little shady, kind of screwing each other. Yeah, there's an environment where big money, big commissions, easy to kind of try and cut someone out. It's something where, of course, we don't stand for. It happens a lot, and I think that as a baseline to be in an environment where you're with family has to be implemented.
Now, we became friends over the years going to things like Burning Man, and you go every year to that specific festival, and others like it, and you take part, and you volunteer and all that stuff. Were you surprised that you got to bring that culture in to a workplace? Again, you guys are dealing with high-end clients. You guys are dealing with, this is big business, but you can kind of come in a burner outfit and play music and.
Yeah, I think there's obviously they took a little bit of when I first joined the agency, Maurizio, and I get it. I'm trying to respect the brand and all that stuff. But the reality is, there's a lot of successful people at Burning Man, right? I've closed a bunch of deals from the burn, not intentionally, just because when you're in that environment, you tend to connect so deeply and so quickly with people that they really see your true colors. And when you go back to the default world and you're like, oh, I'm actually looking to sell my house, you already have that trust established. And as it's become a bit more known and all that stuff, it's been a little bit more accepted. And look, Elon goes to Burning Man, the Google guys do. I've sold Elon's mom a place, and so there's a lot of things that come from there that makes it a little bit more acceptable for for that culture to kind of come in, because it is part of our demographic. There are a lot of super successful people, that innovators and inspirational people that go there, and the stigma of the whole drugs orgy dome thing, which is such a inconsequential part of the burn, but that's obviously what always makes it through the news. It's so much more than that. It's a temporary city. You say festival, but technically speaking, it's a temporary city, and like all cities, there's everything. There's AA meetings, there's party scenes, there's a yoga, there's the temple, there's all these different things that you find in a city. So depending on what you gravitate towards is what your burn will be.
Now, so and all that brings a coolness factor to the agency. So when you're dealing with the kind of clients that you guys deal with and the kind of business deals that you guys are trying to close, you got to bring something more to the table than just know-how and knowledge, right? I mean, right? So they have to, a lot of times there's a stereotype of the beautiful female real estate agent that every guy wants to kind of have an unofficial date with as she shows them the stuff. But for a dude, you got to be the kind of person that I think people want to be your friend, right? It gets personal, no?
Look, I mean, when you're selling someone a house, you're working with a buyer or you're working with a seller, it becomes a relationship, right? So for a period of time, while you're selling that property, you're going to be communicating with that person almost on a daily basis, if not on a daily basis, right? Texts, emails, calls. So how can you go through the process if you don't think that the person is likable or you feel good around that person, right? So if you are an individual that they enjoy being around, well, the relationship already is going to be better. You don't want to sell your house with someone that you think is not an enjoyable person. If you just don't. Yeah. Why would you talk to someone like that every day?
Yeah, you want to sell your house. You want to sell your house to someone that'll go to Burning Man with you. That's
if you're into that, and it can be anything, right? It can be not just Burning Man. It can be anything that is happening out, right? Other things in common, like biohacking, which is super in right now, or whatever it is. And I can tell you, the amount of friends that clients that I turn into friends, that we become friends, the businesses that have come out of that, they are not really related to real estate, of opportunities that come because you meet interesting people and you become friends with them. And yes, you do your job on delivering what they needed at the time, which is finding him in a house or selling him a house, but then something else will come out of that.
Well, it's also, I got a feeling, because I've seen this in his life, where the client also starts trusting you with advice. And I think that the whole Joe Dispenza manifesting thing that we were talking about before, I can see how you offering some of those nuggets of wisdom, so to speak, or secrets to success kind of things, is part of what makes you alluring to work with on something unrelated, like a real estate deal. People coming to you for like personal advice and spiritual stuff.
Yeah, because I mean, a lot of times in a real estate transaction, it might be a divorce people are going through. It might be, they need a bigger house because they're having a baby, and so there's a lot of life circumstances that comes up, right? Like we always say, you end up being the psychologist, the babysitter, the whatever, all the different things to a real estate transaction. So trust has to be a big part of that. Like you said, you want to deal with
huge,
people.
Yeah. Like, I always give this example to some people, right? Like, you want to be that real estate agent that they trust with your advice, right? Because a lot of times you come across with people and they are telling you what to do and they tell you what they want, but if it becomes to a point where like they're telling you how to sell their house, then they don't need you, right? Because you're the expert, right? It's like you don't go to the dentist for a root canal and explain to him with which angles he should do your root canal. Right. You open your mouth and you shut up and you just get it done, right? So if you can get to a point where you can be that real estate agent that someone hires you and says, because I have the most rewarding thing for me is when I'm sitting with a client that decides to work with me and we're talking about strategy and I ask, what would you like? And he looks at me, he's like, you're the guy. Like, it's your job. You're the expert. I trust you. Do your thing. Just deliver, right?
And on the flip side, you're really good at this and inspired me to do that a little more as well, is to really cut out the toxic business relationships, where if you're fighting the client all the time on what's best for them, and they're just pushing back, and you think, like, just, and you've done this before, just step away from it, which can be hard sometimes because, again, there could be some big checks there. But just not having that drain and that toxicity in your life opens you up for other opportunities where you actually have clients that believe in you.
Last thing, just because watching so many of these real estate videos, I'm starting to pick up on some of the things that you need to know about architecture and interior design, right? So we've covered business and personality and the personal relationship building aspect, which you guys nail. But do you guys have to learn a lot about like interior design? I know you have a knack for interior design, but like architecture, like a view corridor. These are like terms from Inicio.
But I mean, I don't know if you know this, but Santi developed the house that LeBron James bought.
Whoa!
So he does a lot of that. Yeah, we all know the basic stuff, but there's another level in which.
Yeah, no, I own a development company, so I do spec homes too.
Okay. And so you work with architects and you kind of tell them what you want, or you're an architect yourself?
Yeah, for sure, 100%. No, I'm not an architect. I work with architects, but I wanted to be an architect when I was very young. And I always had that passion for architecture, and I end up not studying that because, architects don't make money anymore. You should study business, and then you get into like, that's the whole point is like the way how we've been taught to do things are not how they should be.
Okay.
It's like you should do what you really want to do because that passion is going to translate in any form of success, whether it's money or just no money. You don't need to be rich to be successful, right?
Okay, a couple of these are just like non-architecture real estate guy questions when I'm watching these things. One, why do people want glass front doors? These are quick answers. Don't overthink
Let the light in.
Would you have? Do you have a glass front door to your house?
I don't.
I would.
Look, it depends where the house. If your house opens to the street, you might not want to have the glass doors,
exactly.
right? There is places where it makes sense and places where they don't make sense.
You need to have a car. What do you call it? A car court?
Motor court.
A motor court. Yes. Depending on the view quarters. I love all these stainless steel and any kinds of wood. Do they match? Do they go together?
Sometimes, yeah. Sometimes they do. I think it's all.
It depends on the architecture of the house, right? Mid-century, modern versus.
I'm a total Mimo kind of guy.
Yeah.
Okay,
same.
Mimo and like Spanish Mediterranean stuff. Have you been to Coral Gables in Miami?
Of course.
Those houses.
Yeah, they're great.
I love those. What's another question? Granite or what's another like good stone to use inside the house if you can't afford limestone? Well,
that's not necessarily the one that you go when you cannot afford, but I might prefer stone, I think.
And then lastly, since this is a minor segue, because you come from Bolivia, near Lake Titicaca. What is it?
Titicaca.
Titicaca. Well, two bad words in one. Holy moly. So who built some of those major structures where they said that the stone is perfectly fitted? They don't need any stuff in between. Or,
Like the pyramids, you mean? Like
but
all
not the
this-
pyramids in Egypt, the ones that are closer to like Bolivia. Who built
Yeah.
them? Aliens?
I mean, it's possible.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that we need to add to this classic episode of Check It Out that you wanted to throw in there?
No, just thank you. Thank you for having me. This is super fun, and I enjoyed it.
Are you going to be in the second season of Buying Beverly Hills?
Yeah, we're filming right now.
Are you going to be in the third season?
Yes. If there is one, right? We don't know
Oh,
if it's
there'll
gonna
be.
be.
There'll be one. This is the real last one. Do you guys have a rivalry with the Selling Sunset reality show, which is Compass? I think. Am I allowed to even?
Not really.
I'm not allowed to say their name, right?
Not really.
The rivalries. Don't
It's
say their
I
name.
think it's a different style.
I've never watched any of those
Yeah.
shows, so I don't have a point of reference, to be honest.
I've never watched any of those shows either. I only watched Buying Beverly Hills.
Great.
Well, good boy. Latino.
There you go.
Keep it with the Latino.
No
vibe.
assholes.
No assholes.
Santiago Arana, Stefan Pompuy, you've been on Check It Out.
God.
So that